Welcome to Conversations from the Barn at Everwood Farmstead. These are casual chats with visiting artists. Creaky barn, bugs, and all. Enjoy. Welcome to the first podcast of our season 12, 2024, Conversations from the Barn. I'm Bill Underwood. Chris Everett's here with me, and joining us is our very special guest for the week to kick off our artist retreat season, Ondara. Welcome to the barn.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, happy to be here.
On occasion, we, in the off-season, invite an artist to join us for a special retreat. And the stars aligned, and we were able to, in between construction projects, welcome Ondara. And it's a very short window this year as we're about to undertake some significant construction. So, hey, how has your week been?
Really good. Really restful and productive at the same time, which is interesting. You know, it's perhaps you expect to be very productive, but then also adding some rest to it. Interesting dynamic between rest and productivity, which is quite healthy. It feels nice. Yeah.
It seems to be I'll call it the struggle that artists deal with when they're here, is that balance between productivity and rest.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see that you've eased into it and with no guilt and
Right.
all pleasure.
Yeah, it's almost as though you're trying to find productivity within a restful state. Mm. So you rest, and then you get into a certain frame of sort, a certain level in your mind, and then you sustain that as you create. And so your source is from a restful place. It's a place of calm and peace. And there's a different type of art that comes from that, from as opposed to coming from a place of hustle. So it's interesting.
I know this week we spoke earlier. You're exploring themes about home as you're in transition in a lot of ways yourself. But I'm wondering how having the space to both rest, restore, and work, what that reveals about home, if anything.
Yeah, I suppose, the poem I showed you about what is home, I should maybe add a couple of lines, and it's where I can rest and be productive concurrently at the same time. Yeah, there's something very homey, certainly, about this place. It felt that way the last time I was here, which is why, it's always been in the back of my head, just gotta go back to Everwood at some point, and yeah, it's a very homey, very inviting, peaceful type of space that you've created here. Thank you for doing it. It's very well appreciated.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
A sign of success for us, there's lots of different signs of success for Chris and I with artists. Perhaps my favorite sign of success is when someone walks around the property in the robe, robes that are provided. And so if you don't mind me sharing, Ondara is actually fully clothed, but then also in the robes, one of the robes that we provide to the artists in the closet. And it's to me, I don't know why, but it's such a sign of like,
I've settled in
and I'm here and I'm present and I'm at peace.
Indeed. Yeah. I'm a robe person. I go for walks with it, it's just like, just
so great.
The second I go here, I was like, okay, I put my robe on. I'm home.
It'll be interesting to see what we find in the pockets later.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Trip around the farm.
Acorns and
when we were benchmarking about building an artist retreat, one of the things that we had a hunch about is, unlike a lot of retreats, we don't have a request for proof of work by the end of the week, and a lot do. And while, of course, pre-season, this time is yours to use as you want, we've heard from a lot of artists the same way, that without the pressure to show something at the end of the week or prove something at the end of the week, it opens things up. It releases some pressure to just let the week unfold the way that it needs to unfold.
It's true, and sometimes I wrote some songs that I'm really happy about and really proud of, and they've come to me at the most random times, right? So I've had a very restful day. I've walked around, and then I'm just cooking, and then whoa, just like what's a cool melody? Pause. And I'll I'm gonna turn the stove down and like attend to that song for a moment. So it's been moments like that where I'm just in the midst of moments of calm and rest, something would just sort of attack me, and I'm like, oh, cool. One moment, let me put that down. So it definitely creates a different frame for creation, which is cool.
It's interesting the need for space for creativity to happen.
Yeah,
and we can kind of train ourselves. I'm a graphic designer by trade, and we had these, hard deadlines and meeting, and you just kind of train yourself to be productive on command in some ways. I think we all do. But what can happen if you actually have some open space to just be and let something come to you rather than push it out?
Yeah, you make something different. It's different type of art that comes out of that. This record is definitely certainly that, because it's it's all the songs that are in it are just songs that I wasn't trying to write. I was just doing stuff, and that's cool. I'm gonna catch that for a moment. There's the lads that came here to interview me yesterday. We were having this conversation about what they do, and they're talking about oral tradition, and she mentioned the speed of trust.
The speed of trust.
Speed of trust, yeah, as a way in which they tell stories. It was interesting way she explained it. I'll probably botch it if I try to explain it. But I was like, wait, what? Well, hold on. What did you just say? Speed of trust? What is that? Tell me more. And so as soon as she left, I just wrote a song called Speed of Trust, because it was just the song it's essentially it means that I'll love you as fast as you will allow me to love you. Essentially that's what as that song means. And in her context, it was more like, I will allow you to tell your story as quickly as you can trust me to tell it to people, as quickly as we can trust each other. And so that's just something that comes at you, and you're like, what? I don't know what that is, but that's a song, obviously. Let's put this down. And
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What's the timing for this upcoming record? Do you know?
I have no idea. I think probably I'll start recording this fall. Yeah. So I'm basically creating moments like this this year, just sort of scattered about here and there, a week here, a week there, and then I'll gather all those moments into something by this fall, and I'm excited about it. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier in the week that you were going to try to focus on words rather than music this week. How did that pan out, and what was that like?
Oh, it's great. It's and I mean the great being in the place where I am, where I've already put out a couple of records. I already have a fairly sustainable career going on, so I can try to mess around with my creative process. She's like, well, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just write words and stories for a week and not think about any instruments. So I've been doing that, and that's very cool. It's just you mess with your creative process, and you come up with something different. And then I'm gonna focus on trying to turn those stories into melodies in the next week. Just trying different things to see what comes up, and after all of that, it's really fun. It's very different from when you're making your first records, and you're sort of there's a survival element to it. So you want to be prompt, you want to be expedient about it, follow the pre-established standards and formulas. I'm like, okay, let's make the record, go out there, play some songs, make a living. And then you do that, and then when I'm making my fourth record now. So you have a different vantage point, different place of approach, and an environment like this creates a good background to approach it from my current vantage.
You just mentioned your first album. That's actually when our paths crossed for the first time. Flashback to the winter of 2017, I believe. And I think we got an email from Chastity Brown. She would have just performed at Everwood probably the year before. And she said, hey, I'm performing at Ice House and somebody's opening for me and I think you should see him. And that was you, if I recall right.
Yeah.
And so I went to Ice House. Chris, I was out of town. I went to Ice House in the middle of dead winter. It was my first time there. And you got up on stage and you sang about 4 words. And I was like, that guy's coming to Everwood. I vowed that night, I'm like, you went by JS Ondara at the time. And I was like, actually, you might have gone by Jay at the time.
Yeah, I might have. Yeah. Well, this is how
right?
long ago it was, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was like, Jay is coming. He's coming to Everwood.
You called me immediately.
I texted him immediately from Ice House. And I'm like, you will not believe what I'm hearing right now. So the summer of 2017, you came to Everwood and performed, and still our audience members talk about to this day, some of the lucky ones that were here, like, I cannot believe we saw Ondara in your barn with a crowd of about 150. Like, because now let's flash forward to today, 2024, you're performing around the world. When you think back to Ondara in 2017, like, what would you have said to yourself at that time, knowing your success and today?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I'd probably tell myself to trust the path and keep going, and keep believing in the path and the journey that brought me this whole way far from home. And stay in the path, stay in the prophecy. Could say. I suppose I would tell myself now the same thing. I feel
the advice
like,
wouldn't change.
Yeah. I feel like I would tell myself the same thing now. It's just stay in the path, stay in the prophecy.
What is your relationship to music now?
Oh yeah, wow, that's a good question. I found like the music I even listen to has changed a lot. Part of what I'm trying to do also is reestablish my relationship with music, because I started making records because I really love music. When you start doing it professionally and then it's your job, it creates a certain strain on that relationship. At least it changes it somehow. At least it has for me. So in certain times I couldn't even listen to music very much. Sometimes there's some kind of, at least for me, some weird paranoia about plagiarizing my contemporaries or something like that. So there's a sadness about that. I've suddenly lost something with regards to my relationship with music. There's a bit of loss that I've gone through. I don't listen to as much music, I listen to mostly classical. I listen to jazz and instrumental things. Been recently re-establishing my relationship with some of the songs I loved growing up, like some of the rock songs, like guitars, like electric guitars, like Radiohead and Pink Floyd and things like that. It's changed, dramatically in ways I hadn't anticipated. But I think like any type of relationship, it's an evolution, isn't it? You know, it's so you go through ebbs and flows, and there's times I just don't want to hear anything about music. I don't want to like go to a concert. I've just been on tour for like 6 months, and I'm like, nobody tell me about music. I'm just kind of like, I want to chill in a bed for a while and think about different forms of art, like film or painting. And then I'm like, oh, I want to hear some music, and then I go back into it. And it's this ebb and flow. Yeah.
What is bringing you joy these days?
Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Self-discovery. I suppose that's the same answer I gave you last time I spoke about this. You asked that. It's a beautiful question. But yeah, the process of discovering the various elements of myself and finding me. That's it's very arduous work. It's taxing on the spirit, because you really have to go searching, and it's going to like everything you find. But you try to mold and create yourself into someone you're fond of and someone you're proud of, and it's such difficult work, but there isn't any better work to do, is there?
It is the work.
It's the work.
It's the work. Yeah.
So a Grammy nomination comes your way. How do you find out about it? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was hopping into a flight actually. It was in Europe somewhere, and I was getting into a flight, and one of my managers calls me and tells me, and then I have to sit in the flight and ponder about it.
Wow.
Just for like hours, just thinking, what does that even mean? I don't know what it means. It's just fascinating, really. I turned down the invitation to go to the ceremony, so I just didn't want to indulge myself too much in all of that. So I was like, I'm just gonna stay home and practice I had a tour coming up with the Lumineers. I was like, I'm just gonna practice for this tour. Thanks for the invitation, though. Yeah.
Well, shall we? Do you want to wrap with your?
Yes, we have a question that we end all of our podcasts with, and it is this: how have you experienced beauty today?
Or this week?
Today or this week? Oh wow, myriad of ways. I feel I'm experiencing it right now just by listening to the birds singing, and by being in conversation, but being able to be in close communion with my muse throughout the week. Being able to. Sometimes you're not having you're not in very good communion with the muse, and you put out you write songs, because I'm a compulsive writer, so I write thousands of songs, and when the communion is beautiful, there's something good comes out of it. It's like when you're having a really good conversation with someone, and you're like, oh, that was a good conversation, and the type of conversations I've been having with my muse this week have been really productive and really beautiful, and some good poems have come out of that. I think there's been a myriad of ways, I'm certain, where those are some of the ones that come to mind immediately.
I love that you use the word communion, because there's something sacred in that.
Right.
That exchange.
Yeah, which is, I think it's why I do this type of work too. It's because when I travel all over the world, and people travel from very far to come to this concert, and they reorganize their lives temporarily to make their way there, right? Maybe it's someone getting a babysitter, and then driving from a very small town in Sweden to make their way to Stockholm, and then they have to go and park, and then they have to get a hotel to stay the night, and all of that just to be in communion with other people who have a similar love for the same same type of spirit, and that's a beautiful thing. It's that communion, and that's what keeps me going in a way, when I see people come together like that because of art, because of music.
Well said.
Take this energy with you from this week.
Yes.
Take it with you on your future journeys. Always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
No, thank you.
We hope that this continues to be one of your homes. Out in the world, you're always welcome to come, and we hope your muse continues to care and nurture for you in an ongoing way. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you for having me here again. It's been a wonderful and beautiful experience.
Good.
And thanks for having this place. It's a gift. It's a true gift.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Conversations from the Barn at Everwood Farmstead. Our theme music is provided by John Mark Nelson. Wishing you all good health.